Test 1 2. Testing 1 2 1 2. Test your mic, dear.
Hello, hello, hello.
Test 1 2. I'm going to do the intro and wait. We got less than a minute. We got some people joining us on the Facebook.
You have to tell me if my friend Nicole shows up.
All right.
Nicole from LaBelle.
10 seconds, dear. 10 seconds. All right, going to start the radio show.
The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beach Talk Radio. My name is Ed Ryan. The lovely wife is here as well, and we have another great show lined up for you today. Today is Saturday, September the 28th, 2019, and we are broadcasting live from Peach Time Out on Fort Myers Beach, right in the heart of Times Square. Peach Time Out, of course, has the best breakfast on the beach. So we invite you to come on down, watch the show, have a bite to eat. Maybe even a breakfast beer if you'd like that, or a Bloody Mary, and enjoy this beautiful weather that we're having. It's just unbelievable down here. So stop lounging around the house or being lazy on the couch and get out and enjoy the weather. You'll have plenty of time to sleep when you're dead. All right, we want to make sure we give a shout out to everyone listening on the Florida Podcast Network. We appreciate every single listener. And as always, you can watch this show live on Facebook and on YouTube. Audio is live on our app, the Beach Talk Radio app, which you can download for free from the Apple App Store. All of our shows are archived on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, BeachTalkRadio.com, and you can even tell Alexa to tune in to iHeartRadio and listen to Beach Talk Radio or something like that. Maybe it's the other way around. And make sure you subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, because that's really the only way that we'll know that you're a subscriber. And then you'll get a little notice that we have a show coming out. So
Do you need to take a breath? Wow, that was a lot.
I probably could I probably had that memorized now. So, but I want to make sure I don't make any mistakes. I want to keep it smooth.
Oh, that's going to keep you from making mistakes.
Our first guest today, Dan Spears, the Vice President of Industry Relations for BMI. And Dan, your second appearance on the show. We appreciate you coming down. And the Songwriter Fest is in full form right now. It's rocking and rolling, and we appreciate you coming on. How's it going?
You know, it's my favorite time of year, Ed and Kim. Not only did I have the great pleasure and honor to be on your show last year, but, you know, it's such a great time of year to be down here, because the streets are alive and the venues are full. And, you know, 7 years ago or 6 years ago when we first started this, that wasn't the case. You know, the whole idea of this was to try and spur the economy during what I'm told was at one point the slowest time of year. Mm-hmm. And so to put heads in beds and seats in chairs and see this place alive and well 6 years later is very gratifying.
So Dan, before we get to the Songwriter Fest, for people that don't know, can you explain exactly how important BMI is and what BMI does for the songwriters and you know, that group of folks that you help out for so many years?
Sure. And there's a great connection to the businesses that are surrounding us right now. So BMI is a not-for-profit company. We represent songwriters and publishers. So under the copyright law, anytime music is publicly performed, which means live music in a restaurant or a bar, a hotel, an aerobics class, streamed on the internet, broadcast on the radio or on television, whenever that happens, under the copyright law, the songwriter is entitled to royalties. Now, as a songwriter, we all wrote music. I wish we did. it'd be impossible for us to go to every business in America that's using our music and negotiate a fee and get paid. So you affiliate with a company like BMI. We go out and represent that music for you. We license all the businesses that are using your music, and then we go out and pay the royalties to you based upon how many times your songs are performed. We're not for profit, which means that 90 cents of every dollar we collect goes back to the songwriters to continue to fuel the creative process and allow them to continue to write songs.
With the way that music is consumed these days, has it gotten harder for you to try and navigate how people stream and how the songwriters get paid with all the different digital ways that people are listening or stealing music?
Yeah, that's the thing. Stealing is the word, because music can be heard everywhere now. I mean, everywhere. There's not many ways that you can't hear music. I mean, it's coming out of every possible instrument, smartphone, whatever, and we have to track all that for our writers. And in these days, you made the point out about theft. I think songs in general are undervalued in this country. Yes, the produced music is appreciated, respected, and listened to, but the person behind the scenes who actually wrote that song, most people don't really understand that there is this anonymous person in the national songwriting community or elsewhere that writes songs for a living. It's not the big star. It's not George Strait. It's not Tim McGraw. And so we work every day to try and shine a spotlight on the craft of songwriting. And we work every day to try and track who's using music and make sure that the rights of the songwriters are being protected.
So the singers are not always, I mean, once in a while, the songwriter, but they're, it's the singers that people see. It's the singers that people see with the great wealth, and not so much as going to the songwriter who really gave them that opportunity to.
There's a stat out there, Kim, I think that if a song is streamed on Spotify, the artist gets paid 12 to 15 times more than the songwriter. Oof. And there's something wrong with that. And we're working on it. There was a bill that was recently passed called the Music Modernization Act that is going to help change that. Right now, our focus is really trying to get equality for the songwriter in the digital space. Because, in the general scheme of things, it's still very early in the digital age. And we're trying to figure out how to compensate the songwriters. Spotify's trying to figure out how to make money. I mean, Pandora's trying to figure out how to make money. I mean, they're not rolling the dough either. They pay a lot of money in royalties to the labels and the songwriters.
We saw each other in Dallas this past week at the radio show, which was great to catch up with everybody. And we were talking about this very subject, and that all these downloads or spins or listens on a digital platform are one thing, but if people like artists and songwriters want to get paid, and we joke about this all the time about how she thinks radio's dying and my daughter thinks radio's dying, but if a songwriter or an artist wants to get paid, their song needs to be heard on the radio.
It's true. I mean, I would say that when you hear about 1 million streams on Spotify, which for an independent artist or songwriter is a big number, but in the general scheme of things, when a song is streamed once, only one person hears it, right? When a song is played once on your local radio station, there's a lot more than one person listening to it. So yes, to your point, because we pay based upon performances, how many spins that song gets. And in radio, a song being played on a LA radio station is going to generate a lot more spins than one stream on Spotify. So yes, to your point, the revenue stream that songwriters get from radio is crucial to their careers.
One other thing we talked about on last year's show, or in between last year and this year's show, was Kylie Morgan and Jay Allen. They were both on our show before the Songwriter Fest last year, and we thought that her singing was outstanding, and he was great. And you and I were having a conversation about why doesn't she get signed by an artist or by a label? It just doesn't make sense the way she sounds. And then there you go. A couple months later, she got signed by UMG.
Yep, she got signed to a label deal, and they're not here this weekend. We tried to work it out. They got a lot on our plate. Once you become a label artist, then your schedule suddenly gets extraordinarily busy as they try and get you out and introduce you to radio and put you into showcases and that sort of thing. So hopefully we'll get them back next year.
Awesome. And on the way home from one of our shows, her song was being played on Sirius XM. Now, I know Sirius goes deeper into, they play a lot more artists than radio. If you get on Sirius and on Buzz's show or one of the other artists show or host show, is that you're going to be played on the radio, or is there no
Well, I think
guarantee?
no guarantee, but I think it's a great springboard. I
Mhm.
think it's a great place to start, particularly if you're an independent artist or on a small independent label, and they don't have the promo teams, they don't have the people behind them that can push to get your songs on commercial radio. If you can get on XM Sirius and get some traction there, sure, that makes a difference. Just like if you're an independent artist, and there are many of them that are here this weekend, independent artists, I mean, they're not signed to a record label, so they don't have people working hard to get their music heard. They're doing a lot of themselves through social media and such. But you'll find a lot of independent artists here that, they're getting their music streamed on Spotify. Sometimes songs are being streamed more than 1 million or 2 million times. Now, as I said, it doesn't result in a lot of money to them, but it certainly builds their brand, so that at some point when they go to a record label and say, hey, I'm Dan Spears, singer-songwriter, guess what? I've got people streaming, my songs millions of times on Spotify. I've got 150,000 followers on Instagram. That's great for the labels these days, because the labels, not like the old days. In the old days, the labels had money. And if they saw Ed Ryan playing at Pete's Time Out on a Saturday night, they could pluck you out of there and say, we're going to make you into something big. And they'd spend $1 million to introduce you to the consumer, to the listeners, to the audience, to the general public. They don't have that money anymore. And so instead, they're looking for somebody who comes to the table with a built-in fan base. So they look at the analytics of Spotify and Instagram very carefully, when they sign artists. Kylie, for example, I'm sure they looked very hard at, how is she being responded to on Spotify? How often is she being played on XM Sirius?
It's almost like the minor leagues for radio.
Correct. No question.
So the independent artists and songwriters that you were talking about, how did they become in it with BMI? Do they sign up? How does that? Or do you?
That's a great question, because I talk to songwriters all the time. Yeah, Kim asked a great question.
She's hired.
Could you check the box off? If you're a songwriter, and when I say songwriter, that can mean that you're sitting in your basement by yourself writing songs. You can join BMI for free.
Great.
It doesn't cost a dime. And I encourage up and coming writers to consider that, because even though you may not have songs on the radio or on XM Sirius or being streamed such that you need someone to collect those licensing fees / royalties for you, BMI does a lot to nurture and develop the next generation of writers. We do showcases, workshops. So to your point, BMI almost serves as part of that minor league system too, to try and help get the writers up to the majors. We also have a really cool app within BMI that I always like to sell and talk about. It's called BMI Live. And if you're a local singer-songwriter here in Southwest Florida in Fort Myers, and let's say you're playing out at a lot of these venues, which of course, most of these venues support live music, which is why we love coming down here.
Right.
It's a huge part of a songwriter's income is the live music portion. Most of these venues support live music. If I'm a singer-songwriter, if I'm Kim and I'm playing here, at the pier side or someplace up and down this strip, and I'm only playing original songs, okay? Just playing stuff that I wrote. It's not on the radio. It's only being heard when I play at these local venues. In our survey of how to pay out what songwriters get paid, we use national airplay numbers. And so if your music is not being played on national radio, then you're not going to get paid based upon those performances in those venues. But we have this app called BMI Live, where every night after your show, you upload your set list of your original songs and we'll pay you.
Cool.
It's an honor system. It's a self-reporting system.
Wow.
And it ensures that the owners of these venues who are paying the fees to BMI, that their money is going to the right people, and that they're trying to support that regional songwriter when they have them perform. This is just another way of making they're being compensated for their works.
Well, one more question, and then I want to focus on the Songwriter Fest, and being partially in the radio business, covering it with Radio Inc. magazine. Do you believe that the country radio is fair to female artists? It's been such a huge story over the last few years. It just seems to never go away. And the country program directors will say, they're just playing what the people want to hear, and then you see somebody win a Grammy that isn't even being played on the radio.
I can't speak from a program director's perspective. I can speak just as you can, sort of being, someone who spends a lot of time in the radio industry. I used to work in radio, and You know, I work for a company that represents songwriters that, of course, are played on the radio. So I kind of feel like I'm close enough to it to have an opinion. This is my feeling. I don't know why. I don't know what the reasons are. I don't really understand that. But I can tell you it has nothing to do with the lack of talent, because I spend a lot of time with our songwriters, you know, particularly helping to curate the lineup for festivals like this. We have a ton of women that are playing this weekend. I don't know if you've taken a look at the lineup.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've even counted them up, but we may have more women than men. And part of that is because I certainly, and BMI wants to support the female songwriters, the singer-songwriters. But part of it is because they're so good.
Yeah.
They're so talented. I mean, there's some really, really good writers and artists and performers this weekend that happen to be female. So we didn't say, let's focus on females necessarily.
happened
It's just
to work.
how it worked
Mhm.
out, because the talent pool, you know, looking at that, there's just so many amazing, talented country female artists. I don't know, Ed, why they're not being played. We could probably talk about that for 5 hours. I don't know the politics of it, but it certainly has nothing to do with the lack of talent or the shortage of female artists that are out there. So you can't, I will argue with anybody that would make the point, well, they're just, you know, we're just waiting for a great female artist like the Faith Hills of the world to come back to us. There's a lot of them out there.
Well, Bobby Bones has kind of found a lane with that, with
Yes.
his special show that he
Yes.
does just to highlight
Yeah.
female artists, and seems to be enough to go, you know,
Oh
for
my
a show
gosh,
for that.
yes. Yes. Yeah, I don't really understand it.
So, how many artists are here for the Songwriter Fest? About
We have more than 80.
wow.
Yeah.
Where are they all playing?
Where are they all from?
No,
Or
where are
they're
they all playing?
Oh, well, I mean, all the venues in Fort Myers Beach will have performances. You know, Pierside Grill, Diamond Head, Pink Shell, Mantanzas, Yucatan, Nervous Nellies. What am I missing? It's all on the app. We got a great
Mhm.
Island Hopper Songwriter Festival app that,
Right.
that lists all of our venue partners. And I do have to thank those venues, because one of the reasons why, you know, we're here, why BMI has decided this is an important place to be, is we want to give back to those venues that have supported our songwriters. So as I said before, if you're Pierside Grill or you're Nervous Nellies and you have live music every Friday and Saturdays or whenever you have it, you pay these licensing fees to BMI. Your lawyer probably told you needed to do it, and
Oh,
it's
yeah,
true. The
yeah.
copyright law says so. Or at least you used to, probably 6 years ago before we came here with this festival. Where does that money go?
What am I
Some
getting?
lawyer's pocket, goes into a black hole. What happens to that money? But now, by bringing the songwriters in, letting them actually monetize the songwriters in a sense, giving back to them, giving them these shows that they can put out to their customers, I think gives them a better appreciation for where that money goes. And it gives us the opportunity to give back in a really tangible way of saying, hey, owners of all these great venues that support live music, we do care and we are appreciative on behalf of our songwriters for everything that you do. So that's a big part of the festival.
How much? How big has it grown? How much has it grown over the years? You said it's the 7th year now. So how big
Yeah,
has
I
it
mean,
gotten?
it's funny. It's hard to, you know, it's like anything in the radio industry, as you know, Ed. You know, you'll ask somebody, who's got the most listeners in Fort Myers? Well, you know, it depends on, is it the morning show?
Sure.
Is it what part of the day are we talking about? So what number we look at to determine its growth, you know, it's hard to say. So for example, Lee County, our wonderful partner, the Visitors and Convention Bureau of Lee County, they look at this festival in terms of how many heads are we putting in beds? You know, they're judged based upon the bed tax, right?
Right.
So they invest their money and their resources to try and bring people into this area and have them stay at the hotels and frequent the local bars and restaurants. So they would tell you that every year those numbers are increasing, that there's more people coming in. The hotels, I know in Captiva, all the hotels were booked.
Great.
You couldn't get a room in Captiva, which is great. I'm not sure how these are tracking here. We'll find out. In terms of audiences, this is not a scientific number. There's no question. And I refer to Captiva and downtown Fort Myers because those are the first two pieces of the festival. We don't know yet. You know, we have the full body of work from this weekend, but the crowds were enormous in Captiva and they were really big in downtown Fort Myers. I mean, we had this huge show at Pinchers on Wednesday night that was sold out. We had a big show at the Florida Repertory Theater with Christian Bush and the Gulf Coast Symphony Orchestra.
Nice.
That was booked to the gills. So those numbers look great. You know, I'm sure we'll be getting reports back on how many hundreds of thousands of people were here, but just at first glance, I think we're on a really good track.
Well, I know Jackie from the Chamber is here, and I heard her saying that last night, it was just packed, that the streets were packed.
Yeah.
So getting off to a good start with that.
So the grand finale on the beach is tomorrow night, right? At the Pink Shell?
Yeah, with Rodney Atkins and Jared Neiman.
Nice.
It's our partners at iHeartMedia,
right,
in Fort Myers have been fantastic. That's one of the reasons why we're here as well, is to support them. They, as we talked about earlier in this conversation, they represent an important revenue stream to our songwriters. So we want to give back to them. We want to help them grow that revenue stream, because ultimately a piece of it comes back to our songwriters. And they, because of their relationships with the labels, have been able to bring in some really cool label artists, big artists, to kind of bookend each weekend. So BMI curates the songwriter shows, and then that's augmented by more high-profile songwriter/artists like Rodney Atkins, Christian Bush, to add a little more sizzle to the weekend. So yeah, we're gonna have a huge crowd on Sunday.
I can't remember her name, and I want to make sure that I bring her up. You had an artist that played, I think it might have been during one of the keynote speakers, with one guitar player, and she was dressed in she had a nice dress on. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Madison Ryan Ward.
Oh,
yeah.
She was unbelievable.
Fantastic.
What now? Is that a country artist?
No.
Okay.
I would say she's more of what we call in the radio industry, adult contemporary artist. She's signed to Republic Records out in LA.
Oh, she is signed.
Yeah,
okay.
She's signed.
Very nice.
Signed. They're in the middle right now of recording her debut album, getting her single out next year. It's a long process. I mean, I don't know if you saw, and again, I'm sorry for the listeners that we're kind of having an inside conversation in a sense, but there was a gentleman that performed named Peyton Smith, who signed to Scott Borchetta's record label, Big Machine record label, BMLG. And he was signed a year ago to that label, and his radio promotional tour begins at the end of next month, and his single's not coming out till probably early next year. So it's a long process from once you get signed to your music actually getting out to the public.
Well, another cool thing about the radio show, sorry, dear, is, and when the inside radio stuff, we just overtake you. I know, but your next segment, you have the next segment. I'll keep my mouth shut.
I just wanted to get back to the festival.
I know, but I did have one more question, because it was cool to hear one of the songwriters get up there and start playing. He goes, and they talk about being from a small town and trying to make a living at it, and then all of a sudden you hear him saying, "It was nice to hear Kenny Chesney sing this song." I mean, you remember who that was?
Yeah, that was Chris Colston.
Yeah, that was kind of neat.
Yeah,
I don't think I've heard that song. Is that a new song that Kenny is? Kenny, I say Kenny.
Yeah, like your friends.
We are. I mean,
this day and age, sometimes even if the artist records it, people aren't listening to albums much anymore.
Right.
Singles. So a songwriter can get a song on an album, but unless you bought that album, you may never have heard it.
What one artist, Dan, do you? When the artist comes out with a new album, what one artist will you download the entire album no matter what?
Oh, wow.
I can tell you who it is. I'm giving you extra time to think, dear, because I know you're a little
That's a
slow
tough
today.
one. You ever see the movie Prince of Tides? Prince of Tides with Barbara Streisand and Nick Nolte. When Nick Nolte was a young boy, the movie's about his sort of dysfunctional upbringing. When he was a young boy, his mother brought in each of his siblings, closed the door and said, "Don't tell your brothers or sisters, but you're my favorite child," and which messed up with his head later on. But my point in telling you that story, child is, I mean, there's some great artists out there. I love Casey Musgraves.
Sure.
Comes out with,
Oh yeah.
I love. I'm an old classic rock guy, so Bruce Springsteen's Western Flyer album I download immediately. So yeah, there are definitely some favorites, but look, I'm to take it back to the Songwriter Festival, Kim.
There you go.
I would rather. I tell people this all the time. I would rather come to the Island Hopper Songwriter Fest and see a songwriter in the round performances with songwriters telling the stories behind the hits that they wrote for the big artists and allowing me to be very intimate and personal with their music. I'd rather do that than go to U2 at a big stadium show in Tampa.
And
honestly.
just be one of millions.
Because you can connect with the music in a very profound way. I mean, when you hear the stories behind it, when you get a sense of who the songwriters are and understand their stories and their background, it connects you to the music in a very powerful way. And that's what's great about this festival. For those that are listening and or watching that have not come down yet, you're in for a treat because this is up close and personal. I mean, you get to interact with the writers. Somebody, we'll have a chance to talk to a guy that wrote, 5 #1 hits for some of the biggest artists in country music, and they'll just sit around and chat with them, have a beer with them after their performance. And you don't have that kind of access to the artist when you're going to a stadium show in Tampa, right? So this is a very personal way to experience music.
And for folks that don't know, a lot of these shows are free. So
Yeah.
come down and you to get that kind of access for free is amazing
They're
and
all-
an opportunity you don't want to pass up.
Yeah, there's only, I don't know, in the course of 10 days, I think we had, 4 ticketed shows, something like that. Like
Wow.
the show on Sunday at Pink Shell's a ticketed show. The show Wednesday night was ticketed. The Christian Bush show is ticketed. Everything else,
Right.
free. All those venues that I spoke about, all those great partners of ours, up and down the strip here, all free.
Wow.
Anything else?
I have one more
Go
question.
right ahead, dear.
Not to put you on the spot, but can you give so for the folks that are coming down for the rest of the weekend, all of the shows are fantastic. Is there one that people might not know that really should take a good look at or a good listen to?
Well, yeah, that's another one of those tough questions about having favorite children or favorite artists. I was just telling some of the
Dignitaries in
community
the audience.
leaders, dignitaries, VIPs
Yeah.
earlier. We were talking about this very same subject matter. I mean, look, there's a lot of great songwriters here that have written heritage songs. I mean, Earl Bud Lee is here, who wrote Friends in Low Places. We've got songwriters that have songs in the charts right now.
Right.
We've got guys that have written, a guy that wrote George Strait's 60th #1 on George Strait's 60th birthday a couple years ago. I mean, we've got those traditional Nashville songwriters, but I will say from an entertainment standpoint, from a musicianship standpoint, maybe someone or an act that you're not familiar with that I'm telling you is one of the most compelling entertainment acts I've ever seen. And I know that's saying a lot, but it's true. It's a group called Striking Matches.
Oh yeah, we've heard about them all week long.
Incredible musicians. They've had songs on the show Nashville, so they're great songwriters too, but their musicianship is extraordinary. If you're a student of great guitar playing, I think their shows at 1 o'clock. They have a couple shows, but they have a show at 1 o'clock at Pink Shell, I believe, today.
Cool.
It's the only show going on. I don't think it competes with anybody else because
Nice.
I think the rest of the show start at like 2:30.
Okay.
Striking Matches. A man and a woman who met at Belmont School for Music in Nashville.
I thought you meant the racetrack, but
No.
sorry.
Yeah, that shows where your background is, right? Hanging out at the tracks, Ed. I figured. Belmont is a big music school in Nashville, and they met there, and they are extraordinary. Guitar playing is out of this world. So if you want to kick off your afternoon in a wonderful way, go to Pink Shell at 1 o'clock.
Well, we're sorry we couldn't get you nice weather for the
No.
fest. I mean, it's been
terrible.
great. It's
Can
been
this
great.
be any
Anything we
better?
missed? Anything you want to make sure you get out there?
Well, I just want to thank you both for supporting the Songwriter Festival.
Oh, yeah,
I
we
want to
love
thank everybody in Southwest Florida because, yes, the idea is to try and bring in folks from the outside to discover this incredible place, but you can't do it without the support of the local community. And they've been very supportive. They come out, they listen, they're respectful of the writers. And I also have to say thank you to we have a great connection with the local songwriting community here. There's great music here
Yeah.
in Southwest Florida. I mean, there's some really cool artists here
Yeah.
that if they ever decided to make the move to Nashville or New York or LA, they could probably get some traction nationally, but they've chosen to stay here, be regional artists and play for their local fans here. And so I'm grateful to them as well because they've helped connect us to the community through their music.
Great.
All right, Dan, thank you so much for coming by again. We appreciate it. It's always
Thank
great
you both.
seeing you.
Great
2
seeing
years
you.
in a row
Thank
now.
you.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you, Ed.
Dan Spears, everybody from BMI. Big round of applause for Dan. The crowd's
Oh,
going crazy.
They are going wild.
So, by the way, I just wanted to make sure I came back to let you know that my download every time a new album comes out is Zach Brown.
Yeah, I guess I could have guessed that.
And
I don't really download a lot of music.
your boyfriend there from Idaho, wherever he's from, Chad, said Ice Cube. I don't think he's being serious. He said Ice Cube. I wonder what your dad would download. Does your dad listen to music?
Yeah.
We're
what does
striking
that mean?
matches playing at the Pink Shell, Dan said. Pink Shell, Charles, they're playing at 1 o'clock at the Pink Shell.
And you can check online, check
They have
their
an app. Yeah,
and
check out the app.
Facebook.
The app is really cool. Yeah, the app is
The
really
app
cool.
is the most current.
By the way, we have a table of wicked dignitaries here with us
I
today. The
know.
mayor of Sanibel is here, and the commissioner, Lee County Commissioner Ray Sandelli,
Mhm.
just decided he
Just
said his wife's out
coincidental.
fishing or something or doing something, and he wanted to come down and watch the show. And Jackie from the chamber is here, and John from Pizza. Oh wait, John's not here. He
Aw,
missed
sorry,
all
John.
the chance to schmooze and hobnob with.
Debbie Voorhees is
with
here
the-
from
that's right.
Lovers
That's-
Key.
I didn't even see her sitting over there. Look at that. Everybody's here. Okay, dear. I'm going to take
All
care of
right.
some ads. Our guests are
All
behind us for the second segment. And of course, we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Shuckers at the Gulf Shore and the Cottage Bar. They're located a short walk from Pete's Time Out on beach side of the boulevard. Shuckers and the Cottage open every day at 8 o'clock. They close at midnight, serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner, along with their late night menu. Their raw bar offers fresh local seafood with no imitations. Always huge supporters of the community. Stacy and Bob are big supporters of the offshore boat races coming to Fort Myers Beach next month. Shuckers is an official sponsor, and they still have a few great seats available right in front of Turn 5. Live band from noon to midnight. Call Stacy, 239-770-6507, 239-770-6507 to reserve your seat, your VIP seat. You can find Shuckers at the Door and the Cottage Bar on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And right now, joining us, we do have an extra mic, so we are good to go. We have, here you go. Pass that around. We also want to remind everybody they can call us and leave us a message on our fabulous new voicemail line, which is 1-877-51-BEACH. That's 1-877-51-BEACH. We do have some calls from the previous week that we're going to be playing in the final segment of the show, where the wife tries to be funny, but we'll see how that goes later on. And right now, joining us about a topic on the beach that has been on a lot of people's minds is Pastor Sean Christer from the Beach Baptist Church. Pastor Sean, nice and close with the mic there. Of course, I get there. Why don't you guys switch mics because his is a little shorter there. And Claudia Stewart. Claudia, how are you doing?
Good, dear. How are you?
Good. Claudia is the manager of the Sandal Factory. So the first question comes from Kim.
So I didn't know you were just going to turn it over to me like that. So we're here talking about homelessness in general, and what is your guys' view of the nature of the program or the nature of the problem? Like, how big of an issue is it for folks here on Estero Island?
I feel like it's a big issue. I
Okay.
mean, being at the trolley stop, our store gets a lot of transients back and forth. We come in the morning, they're asleep all day. It's a problem. It's not good for the customers. It's uncomfortable. Some of them are talking to themselves, talking to the reflection on the trolley stop animately.
Mm-hmm.
It's uncomfortable. And I don't think it's good for business.
Go ahead.
Pastor Sean.
Yeah, I concur with that sentiment completely. And I believe the problem is big or small, depending on who you ask, of course.
Right.
There are those right in here who are going to be interactive, and they're going to see it, and it's going to be a big problem because it is a big problem for Audia and for any other business who happens to be here. Sheer numbers is the only thing I can go by. I don't, every last week for 5 days, the same 12 people were fed at Chapel. And at peak season last year, there were 19. So we are seeing the exact same number / ratio of people requiring, and what we call is requiring services, because I honestly don't know if they're homeless or not. I mean,
Oh, right.
after a little while, I've developed enough of a relationship that I can tell you, oh yeah, I know you just sleep on the beach. I know that. And that number is actually under 10.
Wow.
Actual people today who are sleeping outside of a roof, especially on the beach. Doesn't make the problem any less for business owners or anything like that. But those are the numbers we're dealing with, as far as services go and things like that.
We've had a lot of people say to us, and which is why we wanted to cover this topic today, in the last few weeks, that it seems like there are more people without a home that are on the beach than ever before. Do you see that, Claudia?
I guess there's a network of them, and they let each other know, hey, come to Fort Myers Beach. You know, they'll feed you, they'll give you a bath. They're more welcoming, and it's nice that they do that, but it hurts business, I think. And
Sure.
it's scary for us. I mean, there's older women working at my store, and when we leave at night, you know, guys are asking us to bum a cigarette or money to get a beer, and it's uncomfortable for a woman to have to. And we have cameras all over, but that's not going to stop it when someone tries to rob you or stab you, like what happened to the librarian. I mean, I don't want to be a statistic.
Right.
So, Pastor Sean, you provide great services at the church, yet there are people that make you a villain for what you do. And, you know, I hear from people all the time, stop feeding them or they will not come back. I don't know if that's true, but some people are hard asses. Sorry about that. About that. And
A lot of people are hard asses. I'll help you.
And, you know, so how do you deal with that?
Once again, I only have to go to statistics. Because you know, after Adam and what happened at the library, we responded as far as a group of churches, and we listened. We really did. And we started working with the sheriff's department, and we created some processes. And because of those processes, our incident reporting programs that are at least on the beach now have dropped around 80%. The reason people are not eating out of dumpsters, which is what happens if you take away what you would call a church service, then people are going to eat out of the dumpsters. That used to happen. We have that data to prove that. Or they eat out of a private residence's trash can. What we know about somebody who's hungry is they will eat. That's
Right?
not an issue. They will always eat. What I also know is I fed, as far as programs go, last week, just over 253 mouths. And I know that there's only 11 homeless folks.
Well,
So less than
Wow.
10%, less than 5%.
but you don't really believe that's the real number on the beach, right? They don't all come to your church.
No, that's between us and Chapel. Yeah, I don't. I
There
believe
could be
there
more
are.
that are just laying on the beach and, tell me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Okay.
Only because I have a relationship, and I think that's where fear goes away. I don't fear them, and not just because I'm male, but because I know when to fear, because I do have a relationship, right? I won't let somebody come to our church just to get something. That's not what we exist for. We exist to be a part of the community, and that happens to include folks who are homeless, folks that are down and out, folks that need help, business owners, residents, tourists. So we exist for that purpose. And we know that people with needs come to churches first. We saw it didn't have to be physical need. It's just, if I need something, if my grandma dies and I wasn't the pastor, first place I'm going to go is to a church.
Right.
If I lose my job,
Right.
realistic, the first place I'm going to go to is a church. After 9/11, we know almost 60% of the population went to a church,
Right.
because they needed something, and that's just the nature, of the church. And you could pull the services, but you'll never pull the desire to fill a need by going to a church.
And when you were saying was 253 mouths,
Mm-hmm.
so those weren't meals; those were individual mouths
Those are
that.
people with hungry bellies.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, and then 10, 11, say it is 12 of those folks you knew were homeless. So the rest of the folks that are coming there that are benefiting from those services are people who are just down and out, having trouble making ends meet. What would you
Sure.
say?
Oh, they're all either underemployed, and once again, I have a relationship. So,
Right.
So I see them, I know them. They're waitresses that you all are interacting with every day. They are very rarely is it a tourist, but sometimes
Mhm.
we'll get a tourist who'll know, hey, I ran out of money on my trip. Maybe I don't know for whatever reason, but I've met a couple of tourists who are like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. I needed this today or this week. And whether that's a hot meal on Wednesdays or a hot meal on breakfast or on Sunday mornings or our actual groceries on Thursday. But yes, you're seeing them walk by you right now. people who desire or need services from a facility like that. We just had our health fair last week, and what we found out is the majority of folks who need services, they don't even drive. Of my 253 miles, about 10 cars came to onto the property. So that means a lot.
Right,
people
right. Are walking,
live
right.
and work right here and do not have enough money to provide enough groceries to their families. And my radius doesn't go across the bridge except for your first time visit. We'll help anybody who comes in for the first time. But then we have to prove, based on FDA regulations, town agreements, that you actually are a resident here.
I wanted to ask of that, just to put a face on it. How many are women and children? Would you say percentage wise?
Of my 253?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So let's back it off. Of the 12 that I know that are quote homeless, 8 are guys, 4 are women.
Mm.
And then of the 253, majority are women, children. So we'll go with 70% women, children.
Is that because of deadbeat dads?
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. We have
a
quite
fair
a few.
question.
No, it's a fair question. No, it is. Listen, you introduce me to a deadbeat dad, I'll show you a hungry guy next week because I'm going to teach him that his first priority is mama and baby.
Right,
So
of course.
get your butt to work and go do what you got to do. And that's another thing. I don't believe in just handing you something and saying, hey, have a great day. I'm going to do that the first time. But as soon as I develop a relationship with you, I'm going to make sure you're applying for work. I'm going to make sure you're doing something somewhere. We have people working near us right now that actually work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Homeless, but working, don't have enough money to get by. So they
Right.
still have to have services. But I encourage that. You need to be a part, right? You need to be a part of the community. You need to be a part of everything, because if you're going to be counted as a resident, even though you just live on the sand, you still got to be a part of it.
Claudia, you hear all the discussion so far, yet when you leave your business, you're feeling unsafe. What do you think needs to be done?
I don't know. I really don't. If we could just maybe get them some kind of housing or some kind of help, because a lot of it, I think, when you mix some kind of mental disability with drugs and alcohol, it comes extreme. And I will say my last problem I had was with Cowboy. I don't know if anybody knows who he is.
We've heard of him.
But he loved to sleep there at the trolley. And if anybody asked him to leave, he would get really aggressive with people. I had to get the police involved. They sent me to the bus people. They tried to get involved. Then it was the town property. Officer Tillman came in and he handled it all. He went and talked to the city, got him into some kind of rehab that he's supposed to go to, took care of it, and got him removed from the area.
So, Pastor Sean, my question to you is, it's a long lead up to the question. Sorry about that. But 2 weeks ago, somebody sent us a picture of a homeless person that laid across the sidewalk in front of the Sea Gypsy. And then John was telling us about how there were 5 homeless people. I mean, I wasn't here, so I don't know how you determine that they were, but I guess everybody who works here knows who they are.
Sure.
They were getting in fights and they had to be kicked out. The police had to be called. And, so we're hearing incidents like that. So my question is, whose responsibility is it to, and I'm not saying shovel them up and, throw them on the other side of the bridge, but to figure out how to either build a shelter or get them to a shelter. There's no shelter on the beach that I know of other than yours. I mean, where they can go and stay and be there all the time. I mean, they can't live at the church, right? I mean,
No.
That's what I mean. I mean,
And honestly, I'm glad you brought that up. Was that all the question?
yeah,
You
yeah,
sure?
yeah. I think so.
First of all,
He's got to be like the coolest pastor we've ever
I
seen.
know,
He's got
right?
tattoos
I
everywhere.
know.
He wears a Gilligan's
He
Island
said
hat.
the ass.
I don't know. So the way Claudia did it, that sounded a lot longer of a process than it needed to be, and it didn't need to be that long. And I can help with that. I really can. But the fact that she knew Officer Tillman's name, number one, it's relationship. I'm not saying you need to go meet every person that you think is homeless on the island. I'm saying you need to be involved to the point that you know names of the people who can help even. Officer Tillman is one of the best
Yes.
officers
Yes.
on the beach that we have.
Yes.
He has been to multiple meetings with me about what we can do and how we're doing it and what processes. We work close. I don't even have to call necessarily 911 sometimes. If I see him, I can just grab him and go, hey, right over there,
There's a problem.
there's an
Yes.
issue.
Mhm.
Or I think there might be an issue, and he's on it.
Okay,
He's
what is
listening.
what
But
is
he's not the only one. There's quite a few.
It's a great point, but what does he do with that person?
Well, it all depends on what's going on, because not necessarily are they homeless, right? So first of all, he's got to identify what have they done wrong. So that is the police's first question. Always.
Right.
Sleeping on that bench is wrong from the town's perspective. Okay. So the only person who can trespass from that piece of property would be the town. And if it's breaking some sort of ordinance. Now, like I said, that's where it starts to feel long. The process starts to feel long.
Well, how does the town
So
do that though?
But the
don't
town
have-
has to empower, and the town, I believe, I have to look up the law completely, but for
They-
me, they can't sleep on my property.
right.
I made that agreement with the town. I didn't want it anyway, but so the sheriff's department is empowered.
Okay.
They know
Yeah.
after a certain time of night, we've given them the authority to automatically remove someone from the premises. And that has to be done from if you're private, considered private. So the whole public thing becomes a little different, but I think if it's town owned, then the town then has that right to
So
say,
it almost sounds like you're solving half the problem. You're giving them a shower, you're giving them food, and then they have to be said they can't stay on your property. And now we know where they're going. They're going to find somewhere to sleep. They're sleeping in that building next to Junkanoo, or they're sleeping on the beach because it's nice, or they're sleeping across the curb, or they're sleeping on a bench. And so, I mean, how does that part of what's going on? How do we fix that?
well, you really want to start a shitstorm. Let's just
Just
say,
said
let's,
shit.
I know.
no, I said, hit storm.
Okay.
You,
Where
let's just so I have 72 beds on my property, right, where I do retreats for churches and other groups to come by. So I'm constantly worried about safety, so I'm
Right.
fully involved in that. But yeah, so let's just build a homeless shelter on the church property.
is that? Are you being sarcastic, or are you saying that's a good
Semi,
idea?
because there's no way in the world, I already brought this up, there's no way in the world it'll happen. I mean, because let's just say Claudia lives behind me.
Right.
She wouldn't
You
like
don't
that.
want
Right. Nobody likes that. And I don't blame them. I mean, I live on the property. I'm sort of immersed into it. And I don't ever want to be jaded to anyone else's plight. But no, a neighbor doesn't want to live next to him. That's why the only homeless shelter we have is on the next door to the property in Fort Myers of a flea market. Right in the middle of nobody else wants this land.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you can't really have it both ways like that, right? You can't complain
correct.
about them sleeping on the beach if you're not willing to. I'm not saying build it on your property, Claudia. Don't get me wrong, but there has to be a place,
Right.
right? Where you
sure,
can-
but that is a full community involved quote solution.
I think the
And
other
just back to numbers, we're just not at a number that because
Warrants that.
Mhm.
if you're going to build a facility, now you are going to bust people in.
Right.
It is a myth that anybody gets bussed in for the type of food that's given out on this land. I'm telling you, even for the homeless, right? Nobody is trying to buy a ticket or get a free ticket to come down for any of the meals that are offered. We got some good meals on Wednesday nights and on Sunday mornings, but nobody's
They're not that
driving.
good.
Nobody's driving hours, or walking, So I'm homeless, but yeah, I got a car. And no, that's not what we're talking about. So that's just not true. It's our residents, whether they live under a roof or they don't live under a roof. Our residents of Fort Myers Beach are the ones that are getting the services.
Somebody mentioned on Facebook today. I'm sorry, dear. I want to get some of the listeners have
Okay.
questions and the viewers that they should be cleaning up the church and helping with the chores and doing different things like that. And I'm guessing they probably can. They are when they can, right?
All of ours do.
Yeah.
All of ours. Yeah. If you stay after church on a Sunday morning, you'll see the cleanup crew that is staffed with their crew, of folks who are staying and helping. Anybody that comes for groceries on Thursday, they're always asking me, what can I do? What can I do? Of the 12, of course, there's going to be a percentage that's like, hey,
I'm out.
screw you. Yeah, I'm
Right.
gone. Thanks for the food. I'm out of here. I can't pull away from everybody because those two are stupid. Because I have plenty of just what we'll call regular folks who are just as stupid.
Right.
Right. And come and help, or come and don't help, come and take. So, the percentage of society doesn't change based on your roof.
Well, I think, a couple of things. The point that you make about giving people a job, many people, they want that. That's what helps, the social connectedness and getting people, giving them some sense of self that they're contributing to society. So I think a lot of folks want that opportunity to feel useful.
Absolutely. And, our town has a relationship. You talk to any base guy, he has a relationship with everyone.
And base is what?
It's the Beach and Street Enforcement, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
An acronym. Yeah. So they already have a relationship. Those guys, yeah, you want to talk about comprehensive plan, put them into useful service here in Times Square. Help clean, do whatever, for no other reason. But I understand that gets really problematic from a social construct standpoint.
Right.
So,
how do you know?
we're throwing out, we're just throwing out stuff because that's what happens in an issue like this. You just throw out stuff.
When you say that it's not going to be built and that, the problems it would cause, well, whose responsibility is it at the end of the day?
It's nobody's. We can't take responsibility for anybody. You can only take responsibility for yourself, your actions, and your attitudes. So our actions towards folks, I can control. Sorry, or mine. And my attitude towards folks, I can control. And then I operate out of those two things. So society cannot take responsibility for anyone else's social status. It's what you have to offer, and then whether you want to offer it or not. And in that, we grow. You mentioned that I feed and I do showers, right? Do you know why we do it?
Because nobody else will.
Absolutely not. Because that guy can't get a job if he doesn't take a shower. And that's the first thing we teach them. If you walk into our facility, my secretary's the first one's going to tell you, I'm not even talking to you.
Go take a shower.
Go take a shower. Be a normal human, right? Because number one, there are showers available at either chapel. Sometimes at my place, we don't actually do a lot of showers. Ours are more of a private. If I got a relationship with you and I'm helping you get a job, you're going to have to get a haircut.
Right.
We've done haircuts, right? Because I had a guy who was like, I've got an interview. I'm like, you're not going to get the job.
Looking like
Stop.
that.
Let's hold, right? And so, we spruced up a little bit, and I have some partners with businesses here on the beach that are ready, willing, and able to hire anybody that I'll recommend. And
No kidding.
if I thought we've gotten to that point, we've done it 3 or 4 times. Did they work out? I don't know.
I think too the 12 or 10 that we're speaking about, the group of single individuals who are on the beach, who are homeless, have been homeless for a while, that the reason, even if you were to offer housing, it might not be acceptable to them because they're dealing with other issues that cause their substance abuse.
Oh, absolutely.
And mental health issues. So it's really, I think we always circle back to those few numbers, whatever the number is, that's really, and the issue is getting services. And again, you can provide the services. You can't force somebody to accept them, but
Sure.
Unique ways and at least making the effort to offer those services to individuals who, I know it's scary. I'm a female and whatever, but compassion for someone who is dealing with an illness, and then this is the fallout of that illness.
Right. I don't ever even branch into help when there's some sort of illness, mental illness, substance abuse. Actually, if you read sort of the code of conduct that we agreed to at the Sheriff's Department, is that we help identify that we think we're past the general help we can offer.
Right.
And then we immediately reach out, and the services are really cut off. And we try to encourage, but then if there's enough of a mental illness problem, we can make correct.
Right.
There are paths, but you have to be involved to help interact the paths.
Claudia, is anything that's gone on so far make you feel any better or safer?
really. Officer Tillman, Officer Kime. It's not even his area, but he lives here. And if he hears anything, he's there, plain clothes, standing right next to me. That's the only kind of safety you have. But they can't be there all the time.
How does somebody? I know this is going to sound stupid to people. It's kind of a.
Oh
I guess,
boy. Oh boy.
What's the question? What's the word I'm looking for?
We all don't know.
All right.
It's a dark
How does
space.
somebody that doesn't have a home and doesn't have a job wind up getting drunk every night?
You'd be surprised how compassionate some people are
They give
in
them
some
money.
areas.
They give them money. When they see Cowboy
Well,
passed out like that,
oh, yeah.
they give them money. He doesn't even have to ask.
so as you see tourists walk by, I'm going to say this because I watched this happen 3 different times. I was literally talking with Officer Tillman with a person who was homeless and having an issue. While I'm doing that, a tourist walked up and gave him money.
So the person wasn't even asking.
No,
Right. Okay.
but that's what compassion looks like when you are removed from the situation. If you go anywhere else, you don't know the actual problem, but compassion comes out.
Mhm.
And when I saw that happen, I'm like, that's the only part that we get jaded with is our compassion, because we have to deal with it every single day. I lose my compassion. All right. I promise you, sometimes daily, because of the recurring, or because of the different behavior, or because of I told you yesterday, if you're going to get a job, you're going to take a shower, and then you won't do it. And then you won't do it. And you won't do it. Or I told you, I've Baker acted you, or I've gotten you into facility, and
You're
come
not
on,
receiving
There's
that.
got to be
right.
a little bit. So even my,
Mhm.
everyone's compassion gets to that limit. But so yes, everything is available to anybody. I mean, somebody comes up to me and says, you haven't eaten in a week, that they haven't eaten in a week. I mean, you've just introduced me to probably the slowest person that I've ever met. And you're just, because if you've been here for a week and you couldn't find, I'm going to go introduce you to one of my homeless guys, right? Because you can get pretty
Right.
much anything you want. It's kind of like saying I can't get an education. Yeah, you can.
So I was kind of goofing around with her about this question. I know she doesn't want me to ask it, but let's say one of the homeless decides he wants to play guitar, or hit the bongos, or do something where they're working for a living. Would they need a permit for that? A street performer permit?
Just like anybody else does. I would hope.
Now we would pay for that though, because they're working for the money.
Yeah.
Then maybe we can sign it with BMI.
Good Lord. I mean, it's
Was he being
so,
sarcastic?
yes. And
Okay,
it's
just
so
checking.
hard to follow up with anything serious, but no, I think too, there is an ordinance on the books that I saw in Fort Myers Beach for panhandling and prowling, I think is the word. So that, there is that on the books. You're not allowed to act in an aggressive manner towards people. On the other hand, when I was doing some research, I saw a lot of communities that passed ordinances and then they were challenged and repealed because it violates the constitutional right for freedom of speech. I think that's how it went. It was a kind of a weird offshoot of another case, but it makes the point, like, there's a difference between someone who's being aggressive and causing you to feel scared, and someone who we see homeless or whatever in a bad state, and it's uncomfortable for people, and just because it's uncomfortable, doesn't change it. But if there's a situation where you're feeling unsafe, that's a whole nother level
They
of
walk in the
issue.
store and steal a sweatshirt right off the rack.
Right.
Go sit at the trolley. I have had 6'5" guys standing, looming over women in my store, and I'm sitting with the hook, shepherd's hook, and 911 in the other hand. I don't know what to do. It's
And our presence, our police presence is so close. And if you look at, I know you all have done studies on like 911 calls from different locations and things like that. It is all right here.
Right. You're right.
And we know that based on the statistics of track the calls too. And we know why there's this many cops on here and how often they go away and those sort of things. But the police presence, instead of focusing on drunk revelers, maybe, right? Why not just be right here? The response time for Claudia should be about 27 seconds.
Right.
I mean, and just being real. I mean, unless there's other things
Sure,
going on, of course.
sure.
I mean, there's not enough, police force throughout the summertime to really do it. But but in season, 30 seconds. And Officer Tillman will tell you the same thing. We're right there. But if she can reach out, or if folks can reach out and be able to get to one of those guys quicker, get the information to him quicker. I mean, dispatch does great. 911 does great already. And we're probably 2 to 3 minutes. Would you say? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I mean, even for something like that. I mean, that we're talking about burglary or safety.
Even at the police substation in the Lani Kai lobby, it should only take them about 30 seconds to get down here.
He just can't help
That was
but get that in. Yeah, that was sarcasm too. Well, it was an attempt at it. Not funny,
I
but
make myself
it was an
laugh.
attempt
Make
at
myself laugh.
it. So what things do you think would help the situation? I mean,
I don't have the
Answers.
answers. I really don't. I
Mhm.
just want help.
mhm.
I've been dealing with it for 12 years. I've been on the beach, and it's getting scary.
So you feel like
There's
it's
other
been getting
times-
worse.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. So, Pastor, anything else you want to say to people listening or watching on what they can do to help, if anything?
I hate the cliche, if you see something, say something, but the number of calls coming in to both the incident reporting programs and to the sheriff's department have gone down. We can't stop calling in if there's a problem. I know Claudia is not going to stop calling in, right? But there are residents who just they'll feel like, oh, the response time's too long, so I'm not even calling. Well, we're all packing around little computers in our pocket with the physical proof that we need to go ahead and keep calling. Those incidences have to be reported. If they're not reported, there's no problem. Whether you report it to fmbincidents@gmail.com, because
Right.
it's just something out there. Or you literally call 911 and report it. Every single time you have to do it. Even if it feels monotonous, even if it feels like you're not getting anywhere, I can assure you you are getting somewhere. Because by not calling, you're getting somewhere.
Right.
You're getting a problem to be muted. It doesn't need to be muted. It needs to be addressed always. Then we also need to have compassion.
Right.
And if the compassion is send them to me, I'll help them get services. If Claudia's having this kind of problem, what I'm offering her is, hey, I'll come down. I'll find out who they are. And if they're one of our normal locals or
You'll be on
that,
speed dial.
I'll be on speed dial, and I'll take it. I'll take it because my little piece of the property of the beach is not all I'm concerned with. I am concerned with the whole thing, especially. I mean, I would do it if it was one of my members, and I have plenty of members who live in homes that are just as silly, right? If they were causing her a problem, I would like her to know that they're one of my guys, right?
Yeah.
Or girls. Let me know.
Right.
Or just like one of my kids. If my kids do something stupid, plenty of people call me. So let's do that with everybody. If you know that I have helped or interacted with someone, call me up. I'll come meet you. I'll come see what that issue is. And then if you don't have the actual path to get to a solution, I'll help you get there.
I was talking to one of the sheriff's deputies last weekend after the show, and he did say he believes the situation is better than it has ever been before. And so I guess it just depends on
We're talking numbers again.
what happens and when it happens, and what's
And I
going
think
on
it
at the time.
depends on who you talk to, because I've talked to folks not in the sheriff's department but other enforcement agencies, and they've said it's still pretty significant. So I just, it's
Incidence rates have to be reported. When you do that, then you get the attention of those who can actually do something about the problem.
Is there
Well,
any
and then you'll get the accurate data, and
Correct.
then you can go forward with
Correct.
that.
Is there anything you need at the church that would that from the people that would help with the situation that you're helping with more than most? Donations, food, clothes, soap, nothing?
No, see, I don't ever like to reach out in the community for that, because I would rather the community come just see, right? I mean, you're right. I get a lot of grief, but I've never gotten grief from someone who actually came and saw.
Yeah.
They have an idea of what's going on, right? They have this idea that, I'm providing steak dinners and it's really
Butterfly shrimp.
really, really hot showers and queen size beds for everyone, and people can't wait to come to the beach, right? To live homeless. that's not true. But if you would come and see, then you would actually, the involvement, I'm telling you, that's the involvement. So that requires the compassion, that requires the time, that requires and I know everybody can't do that. I mean, Claudia's got a business to run, right? I'll come to her. So there's a two-way street. I'll come to you, you come to me. We can figure this out together. I promise. And I think Chapel and I have made it pretty simple to figure out where everything's going on.
And transparent.
And very transparent. Come see it. And if you don't like what I'm doing, let me help make it better. I mean, if it's something that we can do.
You're open to suggestions?
100%. I didn't make this stuff up. It's
right. Well, we want to thank
group
both of you
effort.
for coming on and talking to us about this, and hopefully everything will be safe over
Yeah.
there. And I guess the solution.
You'll have to exchange numbers now.
Yeah.
So
The
yes.
solution is 911 or get to know a sheriff's deputy that usually is walking up and
I'm
down.
gonna get Claudia
Or
a concealed
call.
carry's license. We're gonna do that.
We're gonna put Pastor Sean's number.
Tasers for Christmas. There
We're
you
gonna
go.
put Pastor Sean's number on a flash.
I was going to say that, but I don't think you should do that.
Bing, bing,
I'm just
bing.
kidding. Well,
Let's call the office. That'll work.
all right. Thank you
It's
guys for
public.
coming on, and have a great weekend and enjoy this great weather. And we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sean,
Thank you.
thanks for coming on short
Thank you,
notice.
thank
We
you so
appreciate it
much.
so much. All right. That is Pastor Sean Christer from the Beach Baptist Church, and Claudia from, make sure we get the name of the business in there. Claudia is from the Sandal Factory, which I think is right up the street here, and they're open 24/7, and she's there working all the time. And it's not open 24/7, right? Okay, 10% discount for locals, and
Which one
so I'm
should
going to
I
read an ad
use?
while you
All right.
you take care of whatever you need to take care of. I know she likes to say goodbye to all the guests that come on the show. Again, another great sponsor of ours, FMB Designs and Remodeling, our longest sponsor and continuous sponsor. It's a great place for you to get your house remodeled, your bathroom remodeled, your toilet remodeled, everything that you have. And I know that Nikki got a brand new she shed that she's remodeling, which is going to be cool when we get pictures of that. Whether you need a kitchen or a bathroom or a living area, cabinets, anything you have in the house that needs some upgrade, that you want it to look nice and cool, then you want to call FMB Designs and Remodeling at 239-362-8408. And don't forget, you're listening to us, some of you, on the Florida Podcast Network, and we want you to always check out some of the other shows. There's a beer blog show on there, and there's some other shows in West Palm Beach that are on there. You can always go to FloridaPodcastNetwork.com and check out all the great shows. There's even a show on there about Florida news, which is kind of cool. And dear,
Yes,
what
yes.
are you doing over there? You
Well,
just
listen, I have to say, you were pronouncing his name incorrectly the entire time. That seems to be an issue.
I said Pastor Sean Christer. Is that
It's
wrong?
not. It's
Oh.
not Krister. It's Kritzer.
Oh, well, that's
you
too hard
you
to
had
say.
to invert
Sometimes
the
you
S
have
and the
to
T.
modify things. This
So
is-
maybe you should just go with Pastor Sean.
Yeah, well, we'll go with that next
Okay.
time. But this is the second time I got to interview him. The first time I went down to the church and got to tour the church and saw some of the amenities that they have for the people without homes.
Did you go when they were serving?
No,
or-
no,
okay, it
I
was off
didn't.
time.
He's a very busy man, and he could be the coolest pastor I think I've ever met. He cursed 3 times on the show. He's got tattoos all over his body, and
He's
his
very laid back.
yeah, he is. And sometimes you need a laid back pastor in your. He's a beach pastor, so
So-
fits with the beach
That's what
motif.
You get at the beach.
yeah. So I
Well,
don't
I
know if we
think it's
solved
good for-
anything there.
Well,
I think we got a clearer picture for, let's say, the folks that didn't hear the first interview. We got
Right.
a real clear picture of what the Beach Baptist Church provides and why they provide it. And, the alternative of, even I know this, the alternative of not providing it is, that's true. They're going through the dumpster, or they're going to, people have to eat. And that, I know I know how I get when I don't eat.
and you get hangry. And I think, the numbers are pretty telling. 253 minus those 11 or 12. I mean, that would leave all of those folks, mostly women and children, really in a bad way if they weren't able to have that service provided.
Right. Well, you're getting off the subject a little bit there. That's a whole different story, though. Right? They're not homeless. We're talking about
I know, but what I'm saying is that them having those programs where they're feeding people, there's a very small percentage that are homeless. If they were to not
Oh, right.
do that program because of that small percentage,
Right.
that
I
would
see
be
what you're saying.
silly. That's
Gotcha.
what I'm saying.
Gotcha. By the way, we do have hats and shirts here to be passing by. Of course, They're not for sale. It's for donation. They're not even for a donation. I'm just saying we like to decorate the table for John, make it look nice. By the way, there's speaking of churches, I think
Okay.
St. Raphael's is a church, right? On the beach. The
Sounds
blessing of the animals from 11 to 2. I don't know
Oh.
what that means, but I guess you bring your animals and they get blessed by the pastor.
I'm not
I don't know what it
touching
means.
this one because
But there was a
we don't
link.
know what it is.
If you were watching the beach cam earlier, there was a link on there to check out all the details. Somebody posted a link. Jessica Titus posted a link to the blessing of the animals.
Nice.
Take a guess of what that could be.
No.
All right.
You know what I would like to say? I've noticed quite a bit today. Well, there's definitely more people coming down. So that's, get down here quick. But again, with the people riding their bikes
I know. It was
on
crazy.
the thing. And I
today.
wonder, I think there's the signs on the ground that say no bike riding. But I wonder if we just put a sign up that said, thank you for dismounting.
I tried that already.
You tried
I
the
put
thank
a big.
you
I
one?
put it right out here. I didn't say thank you. I
But
said
that's
please
what I'm saying.
dismount here or something. It
No,
was
I think
polite.
you say thank you for dismounting, and
Here
as
we
we,
go,
speak
right
and
here.
live and breathe,
Yep.
here
Police
comes.
officer. Oh no, it's not.
It's not a police.
Looks like
this is how crazy you
I thought
are.
it was. Everybody.
So
just
I don't
writes through
think
here. Anyway, so we were asking people to give us a call and let us know what they thought of the show. And,
Uh-oh.
you got to put the headphones on or you're not going to be able to hear it
Okay.
because this was pretty cool. We did get some calls last week and we appreciate that. And our voicemail message box line is 1-877. What are you doing? 51 Beach. 1-877-51 Beach. And we're going to go to the phones now and listen to some of our great fans. Check it out.
So many chords.
Hi, Ed. This is Dave Skoog calling. We're down on the beach most of the winter. We've talked a few times.
Dave Skoog.
Listened to your show. Listened to the Chris O'Neill story today, and I thought it was pretty nice. I'm a 3-tour Vietnam veteran, but it's nice to listen to the younger guys out there. They seem to downplay their service quite a bit when I talk to them, but we're very, very appreciative of what they do. Especially Chris, he was in harm's way a lot, wounded, and they just don't seem to think that their service is as good as other wars. But we're just really happy to be able to know them and show them that we appreciate their service and their sacrifices. If you see him again, you tell him that I really appreciate his service. Thank you very much. We'll see you in a few weeks, Ed.
That was nice, Dave.
Hey, this
Appreciate
is
that.
Margie Kyrie calling from Franklin, Tennessee. I'll be down there December the 27th till June the 4th. And talking about Sir Pizza, it's very good. We have it here in Nashville. And the homeless problem, when we ride our bicycles up San Carlos, up by the flyover, they're all laying there by that empty filling station yelling and running after us. It's very dangerous and it needs to be fixed. It needs to stop. Gary, thank you very much. Bye.
Ed Ryan, Doug Decker, great show. Very nice show. And I wanted to call the number so that your $2 a month for the answering line, the voicemail box, didn't go to waste. I think it's fantastic. I'm down here in Largo every now and then, so sometime I'm going to stop down and see you guys. All right? Well, another great show. Chris was fabulous. Tugged at my heartstrings when his story. He can be a motivational speaker. All right. Good to see you, my friend. Good to hear you. Hope you guys are doing well.
Now
June.
All right.
You
So
have to give a little context to that last call.
Right. Doug and I worked together on the radio in Oneonta, New York. The first radio station I ever worked at in the town that we met. Doug and I worked at the same radio station. We started out together. I was the afternoon news anchor on WZOZ in Oneonta, coming to you with live. You know what I used to do? I used to cover the Common Council. And they actually had a mayor, an elected mayor, and they called it a common council, and they were called aldermen. I think they probably still are, but that's where I met Doug, and we were there for 7 years working at W. And then I wound up getting the morning show, and he worked in the afternoons, and then in radio, you do what you do, and you move all around the country, and that's what happened after that. But that was cool to hear from Doug, which means he was watching wherever he is right now. I know he's not
Still with the great great radio
Oh yeah,
voice.
yeah, he's the best, and he's a great singer too. He used to
Mhm.
sing at the what was the name of that bar you used to hang out at all the time with your boyfriends back then?
There was
The little bar.
Listen, there was, I think, 72 bars in that tiny little town in
Right.
upstate New York. It had the most bars per capita because we had 2 colleges that would almost double
Right.
our population.
Oh,
so
now it's I can't remember the name of it. It was between Reds and you walk over.
Abner,
no,
Double Days?
no,
No.
forget it. I know it'll come to me after the show, or Doug will type
the
it on there.
Fox,
It might have been the Fox where he
Yeah.
used to play with Bill something. Bill, what's
That I
Bill's name?
can't-
All right,
that I
this
can't
is
get
too
you.
much inside baseball. Nobody cares about. One of the things I want to make sure we do mention that you guys need to know about is the day before Veterans Day. We got something really cool lined up. A special show on Sunday, November the 10th. I think the date's right. It's the Sunday right
Mhm.
before Veterans Day. We are going to have a special show right here, Pete's Time Out, with just veterans. I think we have 6 veterans from
Wow.
Vietnam War, from Iraq, from Afghanistan so far. And they're going to be sitting around the table talking about their great service to the country. And of course, we're going to ask you to buy their breakfast. I know John wants to buy their breakfast, but that's not why we do it here, John. We know that people are going to want to buy their breakfast. So we're going to set up a quick PayPal account for that 1-hour show so people can donate $5 or $10 and buy that breakfast for those guys. I'm sure we'll be able to do it
Oh,
in
yeah.
10 minutes. So that's coming up on November 10th. I know we have plenty of shows before
and
that.
Chris is going to come back down for
Chris
that?
will be on the show. Yep. Chris is, and he's got a buddy of his that he's talking to, and I'll get everybody's names so that we can announce them along the way. So that's going to be super cool.
That will be.
And I think what we're also going to do is we're going to have an extra show this week on Wednesday night. There's so much stuff. Yeah, I know I'm working you to the bone, but it's so much
Good
fun to do this
Lord.
because there was so much stuff that went on at the
It's fun, but it's
council
a lot
meeting
of work. I have a
that
regular
we need to talk about. We need to talk about this PIO thing, and we
Yeah.
need to talk about the roundup thing that's never going to happen because of the state. We never even got to
Preempted
that. That
them.
was like
Yep.
two
Yeah.
meetings ago.
Yeah, that kind of quietly, yeah.
That went away.
needs a-
And your taxes got raised last week because the council passed the budget with higher taxes. And I think they're hiring a marketing. The thing that I'm not really sure is the marketing company different from the PIO?
Well, I think there was some discussion about that, and I'm sure we will continue it.
And then just before we go, the last 10 minutes of the council meeting that you were watching, you were cackling. You were just in the other room cackling last night. What was going on in the meeting that made it so amusing to
Well,
you?
I think sometimes they've been sitting there a
Right.
long time. It was the second meeting of the day, and it was like going into almost at 3 hours.
Dear, they've gone way longer than
I
that.
know, but I think people just get relaxed and
Did you see
they
Anita
say
toward
some
the end of the
little
meeting?
funny
She was
things.
like trying to rush things along, and she should have been in such a great mood. I think her team whooped on
wow.
Michigan or some Michigan team, Wisconsin. I think she was at the Wisconsin game and she missed the morning meeting, but she was on the phone, and then she arrived
Right.
in time for the night meeting. But her team walloped whoever they played. She should have been all giddy the whole time. But I can understand 2 meetings in one day. That turns out to be, and budget meetings are not fun.
I will say in the morning meeting, I listened to a little bit of that, and it was interesting because Roar Offshore was there,
Yeah.
and they got the go ahead for all of that and the quote unquote blessing of the council because they really went above and beyond and got all their stuff together. And they're bringing in, did you hear the statistic? 500% more porta potties
Oh,
than any other
that's great news
Roar
for me.
Offshore boating ever in Florida. So there will be plenty of places to relieve yourself, is what was said.
I'm not laughing about that. Did we ever tell the porta potty story?
No, we'll save that
Oh
for
no,
another
we got to
time.
tell that. Dear, will
No,
make sense.
we're way past.
Yes, so we're at the
We
Spartan
told
race.
it. We did tell it.
All right. Well, there's always new people out there, dear, listening at different times. Radio's measured in quarter hours, so we're in our last
well, you're a quarter
hour.
or
So was it the Spartan race
Yes.
in Boston?
it was one, yes. in
All right. So
Massachusetts.
you sometimes you got to take a bus back to the parking lot because there are so many people at these races, and they have these porta potties set up 10 or 12 porta potties. So there was 2 friends of ours from Boston that we used to do these races with, and we get back to the parking lot, and you're in the bathroom, right?
Right.
And take it from here.
And so our friend Chris, or not so good friend that day, Chris, went up, thought it would be funny to shake the porta potty I'm in, right? And I'm like, whoa, freaking out. I'm
It's worse.
tired after this race.
What did you do when you were inside?
Wait.
Do you put your hands out to try and stay?
No, I got really good balance,
Oh,
So,
bull.
anyways, I come out of there and I'm like fired up, right? So he's nowhere to be seen, and I realized that he has to go to the bathroom. But as I said, I came out, I didn't see him, so his wife said he was in the porta potty. Now there was more than one, but I went up to one and I thought it was going to tip over. And I ran up and I gave it a big old shoulder hit, and that thing rocked. And you know what happened?
Wait a second. Before you finish that, the three of us, not her, were already running.
No. You and Missy. Yes. So I hit it, and out somebody screams, but it's not him. It's a female, some poor woman, and I rocked that thing almost over. And I turn around, and these three are cackling like a bunch of dinglings.
Nice job.
And we all go running to hide because this poor woman's going to come out.
Nice.
It was awful.
The best porta potty story of all time right there. Anyway, that was a great way to end the show. We appreciate everybody watching and listening and paying attention to our dumb stories. And Wednesday night, if she's in a good mood, we're going to have another show. So we'll see you again soon. And thank you all, and have a great night and enjoy the Songwriter Fest.
Yes.
And everything else you're doing this
Get in
weekend.
to
I
see
think
the
we're going to Sir
striking
Pizza.
matches, right?
Striking matches, 1:00 at the Pink Shell. And I think we're going to go to Sir Pizza today and have some pizza.
Today's
so
the day.
dance it out, dear. Dance it out. We're dancing it out.